Hello, everyone. Welcome back into the hospitality room. Bobby Swofford, Blair Cartwright with you on a lovely Friday. Mr. Swofford, how are you?
Good. I'm trying to stay busy and not watch the Masters on the live stream all morning. Here we are, and Masters weekend is officially here. But grinding away. All-star basketball rosters coming out, but we don't want to talk about that kind of basketball. We got to talk about what's going on the hill.
Let's just get right to the headlines, shall we? If I can find my headline thing. Oh, I'm just out of control today. Here we go. Headlines. We'll just go right to it. Cal's the man. Cal's here. Who saw
Yeah.
it coming? Who saw it
Nobody.
coming?
Yeah, no, nobody. As quickly as this thing happened, and we're going to talk about Hunter Yurachek in a little bit, but everybody was ready to run him out of town, and for him to pull John
Guilty.
Calipari out of his cap,
Woo.
and to get a Hall of Fame coach to take this job, uh, and not only that, but to pluck him from your biggest rival in the conference, your stiffest competition in your league, and to get him to make that flip, it's impressive. Obviously, this week has been wild.
Yes, as you can see, I'm amongst the chickens because that's
You're a chicken man.
we're all chicken people here in Arkansas
Yeah.
now because of this. So, and we'll get into that here a little later. Our next headline. Well, the question now is staff players
Hmm.
don't have any. Apparently, we do have some staff coming. Matt Norlander has tweeted out he's expected to bring the stable of assistants from Kentucky. Bruiser Flint, of course, remember him. I think he had bumped into a Razorback player at a tournament game one year. His son Brad's coming in as well. But
Hmm.
no players, and John Fanta already has Arkansas ranked number 20 in his way too early preseason top 20.
Yeah. Well, when you have the number two recruiting class in the country, yeah, you automatically assume some of those kids, if not all of them, are going to come with him.
Yep.
And when we've seen the videos all week long from his former players, and then they always be asked, "Why did you go to Kentucky?" It was never the tradition, it was never the location, never the facilities. It was I went there to play for Coach Cal. And
Mhm.
so you got to believe that a lot of those players are going to come with him. Arkansas is already in the mix for several big time transfers. The names have popped up in the last couple of days. I know the recruiting dead period ends, whether it's today or Monday. It's soon. I don't know what the exact timing of that is. So you expect Cal is going to have a completely different roster because one, there was no roster, but
Mhm.
it's going to be amazing to watch this thing build in literally a week's time. From the day he was hired on Wednesday to next Wednesday, it's going to be amazing how quickly people jump on the Razorback bandwagon.
Arkansas has landed big time recruits before, but
Hmm.
I don't think we have any concept of what Cal is going to haul.
Yeah.
It's going to be
You know,
wild.
getting Nick Smith is big,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Getting six of them at the same time is unheard of. And that's what John Calipari's done in his career.
Well, and
And
you think
he's,
about he's poached two guys from Arkansas, Monk
that's right.
and
Archie Goodwin.
Goodwin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So unbelievable. All right. Next topic. Wess Moore, Little Rock,
My man. Yeah.
had the scoop. I mean, he beat everybody, which
Yeah.
is amazing in this day and age for a
Hmm.
local reporter to have a national scoop like this.
It is.
Uh,
Local TV's not dead, right? I mean, and
no.
he's not even in that local market. Obviously, the Razorbacks are local, the entire
Hmm.
state. I remember I broke the news that Chad Morris got fired, but that's because we got inside information. The coaches show got canceled. And like that's the only reason it could. So they call us. It's like, hey, by the way, coach show's not going to air tonight. We're like, oh, okay. So you don't have a coach. And they said, well, we didn't say that. I was like, well, okay. And so I went with it anyway.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but yeah, but it doesn't happen because obviously these national insiders and these national websites they always have these stories and this stuff first, and so kudos to West for one not only having those sources but two to trust them. I don't know
Yeah.
how many times during coaching searches and even an AD search or two that I went through, and I would have somebody tell me one thing that's like, man, that's pretty commit, that's pretty sound. It's like you know what, I'm going to wait on it though, and all of a sudden an hour later it's something completely different.
Yeah.
So for him to not only get those sources to get to kind of do the background work, for it to pan out too. That's kudos to Wes, and we're lucky to have him in the state of Arkansas. We're lucky to have him at the AAA as one of our broadcasters for our championships. He's a good guy, and he
Yes.
deserves something like that for his career for sure.
Yeah, kudos to Wes, and to even make it, I think it's amazing the local guy broke it. But then even think
Mhm.
about this: he breaks it during the Final Four when everybody and their dog in college basketball is in Phoenix, and he's in
Right.
Little Rock. So, I mean, it's incredible. Speaking of coaching searches, we both have covered them. I did not.
Mhm.
I'd forgotten that you had broken the Chad Morris story. So,
Yeah.
covering a coaching search is fun, exhilarating, and crazy. And I don't know that it's something that you never forget. What is your fondest memory of a coaching search that you covered?
Honestly, I think it's the excitement is really not a good word for it, but like tracking down video. And I think the most fun thing is like so I'm sitting there and I call a station that you've never heard of locally, and you say, hey, can I get the sports department? And he's like, hey, this is Bobby Swofford, sports director at Channel 5 in Fayetteville. Can I get some video of Coach A? And they're
Uh-huh.
like, what do you mean? What are you hearing? Tell me. And so it completely catches them off guard. And
Yep.
so now with technology, a lot of times you can kind of jump in their server, especially if you've got a group of stations and you can steal that video without them knowing about it. But I remember when I called Reno and I asked for Musselman video, the guy's like, he's not coming to Arkansas. I was like, why do you see that video? I was like, well, maybe send me the video just in case. And about
Uh-huh.
6 hours later, I texted him. I was like, I'm glad, thanks for sending me that video. And it broke like an hour later. Uh,
Wow.
so that to me, that's the best part of it is like you get to like all these media guys who media people have egos. There's no question about it. And they think they know everything that's
Yeah.
attached to their topic that they cover. And when you kind of burst their bubble a little bit, and I got to do it a couple times by doing that, that was the fun part.
My favorite time was 97. Ford had gotten canned. Arkansas
Mm-hmm.
was looking for a head football coach. Houston Nutt's name comes up. Of course, we didn't have servers back then. You had to get film shipped in. Got some of his coaches show. He's running offenses with Mike Cherry, who Ford kind of ran off as quarterback. Three wides, four wides. I mean, it was wide open. It was crazy. Um, his coaches show was just. I mean, I don't. I didn't remember him as an assistant, but we knew that he was in play. Um, and he had gone to He was at Boise at that point, but I'd gotten a hold of stuff from Murray and then gotten some stuff from Boise. So, and I'm working for Mike Nail at 4029. And we call around and, you get everything confirmed three times.
Mm-hmm.
Tuberville was their first offer. He's in New York at the Hall of Fame banquet. Arkansas's got a search committee because John White was big on search committees. The chairman found out, went to go the chairman's office because I'd heard, you hear things. Well, the secretary's playing coy because he's out of town.
Mm-hmm.
And so put together, okay, he's in New York, talking to Tuberville. We had Old Miss sources and everything. That falls through. Then Nutt appears on the radar. And I remember Mike had enough intel, so he, goes on the air. It's our belief that Houston Nutt is going to be the next coach. Frank calls a press conference 2 hours later. I'll never forget. He's in there and he's looking right at Mike and he says, I don't care if Bear Bryant comes down from the heavens. The process will continue. And Nail is just like, Frank is pissed at me.
Yeah.
So they bring Nutt in for an interview. It's during a basketball game. Mike finds out, sends me and Chris Kraft, who's known as Cheese, down to the Drake Field. We catch him coming off the plane because everybody's at the basketball game. So
Mm-hmm.
we do a quick little interview. Harold Horton was with him, and Harold wasn't sure. Well, I don't know. And Houston's like, yeah, you know how Houston is. He'll talk to
Mm-hmm.
anybody. So we do a little interview. We drive back. Our studio is right there off the square in Fayetteville. Literally park the car, walk into our department. Phone rings. I hear you got an interview with Nutt. We want it. It's Channel 7. It's like we didn't tell anybody
Yeah.
what we were doing. I mean, I literally get in the edit bay, boom, we want it. So we run it. Um, and this was unprecedented. He hasn't even talked to the committee yet, and they make him available for a press conference
Oh my
before
God.
he interviews. I
Yeah.
never seen anything like it before. Well, obviously it went well, and I ended up getting the job. But I mean, it was
Hmm.
just, I just never will never forget that. If Bear Bryant came down from the heavens, the process will continue. I mean, it's just
I
in the
don't have any.
rumors and wild. It's just
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, I don't have any good because with the Chad Morris search before they hired him,
Hmm.
you got to remember the athletic department was gone. Jeff Long had just gotten fired. Like
Oh yeah,
they didn't have anybody, and so a lot of the sources that we all had were gone because they had all gotten fired, or they had no clue what was going on anyway. And so like in the Brett Bielema was I was still kind of in that transition. I think I'd been at the TV station maybe a year, but I was still in Fort Smith. I didn't have those connections. I didn't cover the Razorbacks that much other than on game day, and so I wasn't really involved in that. The Mike Anderson and when Jet firing was,
hmm
I had a lot of stuff going on with that, and then the Jeff Long firing was really interesting in replacement because everybody thought it was going to be the guy from Tulsa, Greg,
yes,
and
yes.
I remember, excuse me, that when KNWA Razorback Nation like sent a breaking news alert that Arkansas was hiring Greg from Tulsa.
Hmm.
And so my phone's blowing up, and I said, "What are you hearing? What are you hearing from our bosses?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard it from a couple people." It's like, "I'm not good with it though." And he's like, "Well, we can't be last." I said, "You can go with it." It was like, "Don't put my name on it though," because I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm not 100% confident it's going to happen." Yeah, I've heard it. He's in the mix. I've heard they've talked to him, but like by no means am I putting my name on it. And literally 5 minutes later, I get an alert on my phone. Breaking news: Arkansas is decided on that's not Kelvin, whatever, Greg from the
Derek
University of
Gregg,
Tulsa,
who's
yeah,
yeah,
as their
who's
next
now at
athletic
Northwestern.
director. And I click on the damn thing, and all of a sudden my name's in the article. It wasn't my byline, but it's in the five new sports director has heard from multiple sources. I'm like, and so I get back,
Oh,
I get back to the station and I talk to them. I was like, well, I said, don't put my name in it. And they're like, well,
yeah.
you're a sports director. You've got to know these things. I'm like, and then it comes out that he didn't get the job. And then
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'm looking like an idiot. Not as bad as KNWA, unfortunately
Oh
for
yeah.
those guys because they had it all over their face. But yes, that's the bad side of it. Unfortunately, and it's also pretty entertaining too because I get to yell at my bosses for fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody wants to be first to break it,
Mm-hmm.
but we always had a deal. We wanted three confirmations before we went with it.
Yeah.
Because when you go with it and you put it out there, I remember KNWA one time broke in, said Tuberville was going to be the next football coach. Didn't happen. I
Yeah.
forget which incarnation of the we're going to hire Tuberville that was, but it's because when you whiff on that, your credibility is shot,
Done.
or
Yep.
or takes a big hit because people remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough. But and yeah, your bosses are like, yeah, we got to be first on this. It's like, well, do you want to be first or do you want to be right? And there's a
Correct. And
difference.
there is, and with local media, that's kind of gone by the wayside. Not even local media, but with media in general.
Oh
It's
yeah,
because you can just go because you can just hide behind the word sources. You don't even have to like actually have real sources. You can just make up a story and say sources have told X Y Z. I mean, how many times have we read a story on ESPN.com that literally the headline says sources colon this, and it doesn't happen.
yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. You just throw it against the wall to see if it sticks.
Oh, and with social media now, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just I don't know how many erroneous reports we've seen. So
Yeah.
it's just absolutely crazy. So that's a little rabbit hole there of going down the coaching search deal. All right. So back to this. Muss.
Mm-hmm.
How should he? It was amazing to me how, and we mentioned this in the last show, how everybody just turned on him and just
Yeah.
hung him in effigy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was on Jim Rome's podcast. Listened to that the other day. Very complimentary of Arkansas. Very complimentary of Hunter Yurachek. He and Rome go way back, and I thought,
Yeah.
if he's got some some beef, he'll share it with Rome. Took the high road the whole way.
Yeah.
Very complimentary. So how should Muss be remembered? Muss is not the villain here, is he?
No, no. When I said it last week, our Arkansas fans soured on Musselman because he made it known that he was looking to get out. You
Mm-hmm.
don't do that at Arkansas. Arkansas fans will love you until the day you die, as long as you're loyal to them. But as soon as you leave them, that's why I'm surprised a lot of people still love Eddie Sutton. Maybe it's because so much time has passed.
That's
But when you choose to leave, that's when they turn their back on you. Yeah, honestly, I thought it was very complimentary what Hunter Yurachek said right before they introduced Calipari. I've seen one of the interviews. Calipari was complimentary of Musselman, what he built, what he did the last 5 years. Musselman
yeah.
did in that 3 year span what no coach had done in Arkansas since Nolan. I mean,
Mhm.
so like John Calipari doesn't take this job if Musselman wasn't
Oh,
here.
no
I think a lot
question.
of people need to remember that. That
Yep.
3 year stretch put the Razorbacks on the map, back on the map nationally with the conversations of the Kentuckys, the Floridas, now the Auburns, the Alabamas of the SEC. But now they're in the conversation. They beat Kansas, they played Duke, they beat Gonzaga. They're in the conversation with those heavy hitters. So honestly, I think the way it's been handled since he's left, and now they've got a new coach, I like it because he deserves a lot of credit for what Arkansas was just able to do.
It's going to be interesting to see if and I thought a lot of it was kind of media fueled too, if the media walks it back a little bit. And I think time will heal those wounds, much like they did
Mm-hmm.
with Eddie, because Muss didn't. Eddie said he would crawl on his hands and knees to Lexington, which was a shot totally at Frank,
Mm-hmm.
but we all went nuts, and it took years for that relationship to heal. Hopefully, it won't take that long for Muss because he has not said one bad word about Arkansas.
Yeah,
He just wanted to
and
get
that's
back
what you
home
like
to
to
be
see
near his
because
mom.
yeah, I mean, then that's what you like to see because I mean he wasn't fired. He was going to have a job, and
Mhm.
honestly, if he would have won next year, back in the tournament, he was going to get another contract. And there's no question about that.
Oh
Arkansas
yeah,
was back to a level that they should be in hoops. But sometimes you want to go home. Sometimes you think the grass is greener, and you never know what's going on in a man's personal life. Maybe Danielle is the one that says, "Hey, we got to go west. We got to go back home." You just don't know with that stuff anymore.
that was kind of the impression I got from the interview. She was kind of ready to get back home. Plus, his mom drove up to the press conference.
Hmm.
She was never able to come to a game here in Fayetteville. So I mean, to be close to family, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I do think it was interesting that we'll show you this. Whoops, little flash. He wore a suit to the presser. I don't know that I've ever
Yeah.
seen Muss in a suit. I was
Yeah.
shocked.
Did he wear a
So,
suit to the Arkansas presser?
I don't remember. I don't even remember his presser, to be honest.
It was no, I remember that because they set up platforms behind the lower seats because every time anybody would move, it would shake and your camera was
Oh,
wobbly the
okay.
whole time.
Yeah.
So it was in Bud Walton. I do remember that, but I don't remember what he was wearing. Because I
Yeah.
remember I did a stand up for us, and then I was
Uh-huh.
standing there next to Hayden Ballgavy from THV. He's like, "Hey man, will you jump on with us real quick?" And so there's a picture I've got on my phone of me holding a THV microphone. I was like, "Oh, let's send this to my boss and really freak him out."
Awesome. Yeah, it's fun times. All right, so back to the man, Mr. Calipari. Everybody pronounces it wrong, so we'll just call him Cal to avoid it. Man,
Yeah,
that's the third Hall of Fame coach employed by Arkansas as a head coach.
yeah, pretty impressive.
And then really, if you five, I was trying to look it up to see who has the most. Arkansas's had five. Now, women and men, because Gary Blair's in,
Hmm.
and Gene Cady,
Right,
who was an assistant under Eddie Sutton, is in the Hall of Fame. So you've had,
long time Purdue coach. Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty amazing to have four guys on staff. So it's not every day that you have a Hall of Fame coach, and making that possible, John Tyson. So he is now a legend in the state of Arkansas, right?
hmm. No question. I mean, your background says it all.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever heard?
I
You got
bought
the
these
Dino
during
Nuggets.
the press. I was buying these during the press conference, doing my bit for the NIL.
Good for
It's
you.
Hams.
Uh, have you ever seen a booster receive like that? I
Oh,
mean, it's.
never.
I mean, granted, he's not exactly able to walk into Walmart or to go drive up to McDonald's without being stopped anyway.
Hmm.
He forever is. He's now the most popular man in the state of Arkansas, Calipari
Oh,
included.
no question. No question about it. It was funny because as soon as everybody heard this was going down, you knew this was the connection that made it happen.
Hmm.
I mean,
For sure.
and
And they were
and
open about talking about that.
yes, and I think it's awesome because you know it's kind of interesting having been on both sides of it, TV and then within the department. There was some animosity at times between the previous AD and
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tyson. So it's good to see him back involved. Not that he's totally gone away because the golf team plays at Blessings. He's courtside often at
Right.
basketball games, but I mean, he's got a lot of pride as an
Mm-hmm.
Arkansan, and it's great to see those people and the Stevens family also involved. But um, it's not often, as you mentioned, a booster gets a standing ovation
Yeah.
at a press conference.
Yeah.
Will it?
But I
And
mean,
people,
but
they'd still be
when
clapping.
you yeah, when you make something like that happen, like I was even like Hunter Yurachek got a pretty good ovation too when that thing
Hmm.
started.
Yeah,
3 days, 3 days. So this we're talking about on Wednesday. On Monday, they were ready to run this guy out of town.
yeah.
Like he's a
Which is our
bum.
next topic. Yeah,
Yeah.
what a
I
week.
mean, so he goes from being, hadn't really made any poor decisions. I think I said that last week. And as soon as Darrell Walker and Curtis Jan's names are floating around there, I'm like, oh, they're the coach. Everybody is wanting to fire 100-year check before he can even sign the contract. Bye, get out of here.
Guilty, guilty.
Yeah, and I was starting to sour on him too. And then all of a sudden he pulls this rabbit out of his hat, and he gets a huge ovation. Obviously Calipari, and then what John Tyson get. I mean, more than anything, what Calipari is going to be remembered for, if he could go 0-30 this year, he got Tyson to become a booster again
Hmm.
because that relationship had soured between Tyson and the university. Not that he wasn't given any money, he wasn't given the money that was impactful, I should say, and
Yeah.
now that's about to change.
Well, and I was talking with a former colleague at the university who's not there either, and we were trying to remember what happened, and I believe it was the outdoor track. Tyson wanted to enclose the end and was ready to write the check, and Long was like, "No, I want to use this money for something else." And he's like, "No, I'm writing the check. This is what it's for." And it was like, "No," and he says, "Okay, I'm done."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was ridiculous, but
Yeah,
um, just absolutely nuts. But yeah, what a week for Yurachek. I mean,
yeah.
the beard thing, and that's the thing about coaching searches. You don't. I mean, there was a lot of smoke about Beard and Tang.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to think, as much smoke as there was, especially for the national guys, there was legitimacy to that. But to get
Well, yeah.
spurned by a coach at Ole Miss who's going to stay at Ole Miss at a program that's only been in the tournament 8 times in 100 years, and not come to a program that's won a national title and done what Muss has done, that was really a bad look, and I think that just kind of
Well, so here's the
sunk the
deal where
process.
I've got it. So before Beard says no, and I
Hmm.
understand what your check said at the contract, the press conference is like, no, the job was only offered to one person. Well, that's
Hmm.
how it works. You don't offer the job. You don't ask the question that's not going to be a yes. Like you don't ask
Yeah.
the girl to marry you unless you know that she's going to say yes, right? That's pretty much how that's going to go. So you never offer the job to anybody until they're
Well,
like, okay, we're good. So, but so Musselman was able to procure, from what I've been told from several people, 1.2 to 1.5 million dollars a year for
hmm.
NIL.
Okay.
Coaching salaries are what they are. So when you're Arkansas and you go to Beard and say, "Hey, this is what we can do for you," his question is going to be, "What can I do for the players? How can I recruit?" And it's like, "Well, we got about 1.2 to 1.5." Well, Ole Miss is going to be able to come up with that.
Yeah.
Calipari's here because John Tyson says, "I can get you 4 to 6." And that's a game changer. When you're talking, you can double, if not triple, what you're able to buy players with or pay players with, maybe the
Yeah.
better term. It
Well,
changes who you can get as a coach.
it's
Because I
buy.
guarantee you, if you tell Beard, "Hey, we got you $3 to $5 million in NIL," he's the head coach at Arkansas right now. It doesn't even get to Calipari.
Yeah. Well, I would agree. It's. I would also say that if you do offer and you get turned down, you there's a way to. I mean, obviously there were negotiations going on. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
come to fruition. It looks. You don't admit it was offered to somebody else. You never do. I mean, it
No,
was like
correct.
the Louisville job. Um, I forget who they hired off the top of my head, but he came out and said, "Yeah, I know I'm the third choice." I mean, it was like anti-PR 101.
Right.
But the reality is, you probably, this is not the first time the job's been offered to Cal. I mean, they tried to get him to
Mm-hmm.
replace uh, Nolan after the Billy Clyde thing fell through.
Yeah.
So you never acknowledge you got turned down. I mean, that's just,
Mm-hmm.
you have that deniability, but, because it's amazing. Every job is only offered to one person, the
That's right.
person who takes it. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So who knows? But yeah, so Yurachek, I mean, Tyson tells Yurachek, you know, hey, I'm going to send John Calipari to meet with you face to face.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be insane not to do that, right?
Yeah. So, and we can move on after this. The only thing that I'm critical of with Hunter Yurachek, he looked so nervous in that press conference.
Oh
I don't know if you
gosh, did
watched
he
it.
ever? Yes.
I mean, he would not leave the microphone alone. He's sitting here just doing this with all the whole thing,
Yeah.
moving the microphone along. He looks so uncomfortable speaking in front of that because he knows, guess what? His legacy is about to be set. And it's not because he's a
Yeah.
bad speaker, because he's not. He was
No.
nervous because he knows this hire, no more than any other football coaching hire I've made, I have now put my legacy with John Calipari being the Arkansas basketball coach.
Yeah.
His next 5 years are all determined on the success of basketball.
Yeah. It was a little awkward. I mean, because I've heard him speak numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was. I don't know. The human
I think
element,
he was
maybe.
nervous. And granted, that's a lot of. I mean, there's probably 5,000 people there
Oh,
at the Bud, if
yeah.
not more. There's a lot of people there. He knows it's on national TV. SEC Network carried it live. I mean, that's nerve wracking for people who don't necessarily do that all the time. And Yurchek's not one to do a lot of interviews.
Yes. True.
So that's the only knock. That's me, a media guy. You a media guy, kind of being a little bit
Yeah.
nitpicky, but that's kind
Yeah.
of my takeaway.
Yeah. And yet, the one person who was not phased by any of it, Cal.
Yeah.
Just another
Oh,
day at the office.
he could have gone for an hour up there.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it was like Chuck asked him one question, and Cal just, you
He,
know,
he could sell a Corvette
40
to a blind
minutes.
man.
Oh, no question. No question about it. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, with Mr. Cal here, Kentucky supposedly goes after Hurley, which makes no sense. I mean, I get it, but why would
Yeah.
you leave a job you just went back to back national titles for? Scott Drew turns him down, but his wife is an introvert, so I could see why he would want to stay in
Mm-hmm.
Waco. They settle on Mark Pope, and Barnhart is getting blasted. The Big Blue Nation is angry, and they're hiring one of their own, a guy off the
Yeah.
'96 championship team. And Rick Pitino apparently facilitated this. Amazing. They're hiring one of their own, and they already hate him.
Yeah. But there was not, other than Hurley, there was not going to be a home run that was unanimous, or a higher that's unanimous home run. Even if it's
Pitino.
true, yeah, they could have
Pitino
brought him back. Yeah,
is the only
I
one.
mean that's I mean maybe you convince Roy Williams to come back, I mean, or come out of retirement. That's the only one that would have been a home run because
Yeah.
the Kentucky fans are crazy. Every fan base is crazy. But that's the only one that would have made sense because even as successful as Drew has been, won a national championships a couple of years ago. As successful he's been at Baylor, there still would have been fans that were clamoring like, it's a step down for us.
True. Supposedly Pope is going to have 4 million NIL money.
Mm-hmm.
Cal at
5 to
least
6.
five, if not
Yeah.
more. So that's got to rankle him, which is
Yeah. Well,
real strange.
and I know we're out of time. Pope wasn't recruiting Kentucky type players. Cal's got
Yeah.
an advantage because he was recruiting superstars. Pope was not recruiting superstars to BYU.
True. Final word.
See you next week.
Ah.